Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for the most popular and least listened to podcast in the world, the Sixth Sense Media Podcast, with your host, Mike Phelan.
Come on.
Autism's a communication disorder. When you communicate, you have a sender and a receiver.
There will be a low clicking sound.
Everything in between is lost.
This must seem like a dream at times, eh? Raising a girl without her mother can be incredibly hard.
I know. I miss her too.
This machine helps us sort out all the noise in the middle so we can hear Emmy. Have you tried the app with her yet?
Bad.
She only likes her pictures.
Let her take as many pictures as she can.
Bad.
She's always trying to say something.
Did you do this? Did you kill the cat? What are you looking at? How do you know if someone from the other side is trying to talk to you? She's an indigo, which means she's a conduit for spirits.
Emmy?
I think that you're sitting on a ton of paranormal energy.
Emmy?
Are you okay? Look at me.
Going to talk about the noise in the middle, and the most interesting thing I saw about this is handling two very tricky subjects when you're making a movie. You want to address autism in a realistic way while also having a paranormal element to it, but not make either of them look I don't want to say silly, but make it a positive experience for everyone viewing. How difficult was that to pull off in this film?
Well, first, have you seen it or just watched the trailer, or what have you seen so far?
I've only seen the trailer so far. I did not get a screener in time to watch it today.
Oh, no worries. Okay, well, good. I just wanted to see where you were coming from. If you've watched the film, that is a great question, because obviously, it was a really fine line between, how do we display the autism in a realistic way so that people, because it was really important that the people that actually experienced this, because that was part of, the communication that I was trying to show, lack of communication between the daughter and the father. So when I started to cast it, I was like, all right, the knee-jerk reaction. I've been working as a director for about 20 years, since I guess 2000, and in commercials, national commercials mainly. Worked in comedy too. So I'm sorry, I got a little bit lost there. But what I had to do was really concentrate on what level of, because first of all, nonverbal autism, of course, is, most people go, well, why is she so loud and grunt? And, because nonverbal autistic kids are very actively vocal, they just can't use words to communicate. And then, obviously that is, it is such a disorder that you couldn't really, it would be very hard for a nonverbal autistic. You couldn't direct somebody to get an emotional reaction. If they have true nonverbal autism, that's the way they communicate. So how do you take an actress, a young actress, and put her in this film and say, okay, how do we separate the two? And my thing was, and it's just about people. I have this incredibly cool, interesting character. I want to really study communication, right? And if we put her in a situation with the autism where she can't communicate with her father, how far do you go, before you start making the audience uncomfortable or you start losing your suspension of disbelief? And I thought it was incredibly important to kind of simplify it a lot. I knew I would get a lot of flack in either direction, so I was like, all right, I'm going to do my research and really understand what it is that people don't understand about nonverbal autism. And I didn't want to concentrate on autism. That was the other thing, is this movie is about an autistic child that happens to be indigo. And if you're an indigo child, you know, you don't have to be autistic. Indigo children are autistic or not autistic. And in the movie, the father is also indigo. So my thought on this was, how, if you couldn't communicate that you were a spiritual being and that you could hear people, how would you do it? And my thought was, you'd do it through your mind. The only way to talk would be to scream at people through your mind if you understood them. And so that was the part where, when she starts to become aware, we had to really walk the fine line of not tipping our hat to the autism, where it was like, okay, this story is about autism because it's really about an autistic child experiencing a spiritual experience that she can't relay to her father. And that's the metaphor in life. So walking that line was really hard. I think if you watch the movie, the general audience has come back to me and said they were really appreciative about the way we handled the autism. And I made sure that I didn't tag it on autism as a, you know, oh, she's indigo because she's autistic. It's no, she's indigo because indigo children are indigo. And if she's autistic, it would just be the most frustrating thing in the world to not be able to tell anyone, you know? So, yeah, I rode the fine line. I rode the fine line there because no one's ever done it. I mean, you go through Rain Man, you go through all these movies that are about autistic children, and people really don't take a swing. They get really nervous about how people are going to react, and especially with nonverbal autism, because it's so in your face and it's so loud. And if you watch the movie, actually, I probably played Emmy realistically at about 60%, because if you really go into the disorder, you know, you would be unintelligible. You wouldn't be able to actually develop emotion at certain points. It would just get too much. So that's where the horror came in, to really show the distraction in life. And that's what I was trying to do with the autism, is go, here we have this child who's massively, you know, can hear everything and wants to talk, and here we have this man who is so caught in the noise, and he can talk and he can hear, but he can't say a damn word. And that's the synergy that I wanted to create. So that was a really long-winded answer, but that was a damn good question to start out with.
That brings me to the next point: is how did you cast your two leads? And they have to have that loving relationship, but they also have to have that disconnect too. So how did you find your actors that could pull that off?
Well, two things. Everyone, you know, like I said, I've been working in commercials for many years, and I did a lot of comedy, did a lot of the, you know, had a lot of casting. And when I started to go into this, I had Faye Hostetter, who is a really fantastic, talented actress. Mainly, she doesn't really work in film, only on stage. And I have been watching her for a couple of years. And she's just really smart and but she really enjoys the craft of acting. She's that kind of actress. And when I sat down and talked to her, she was really nervous. She didn't want to, you know, do anything that was disrespectful, and she wanted to make sure she had a connection. And so I took a swing, and I really think it was important, because as I was processing this, I went, if you get a named child actor in here and somebody, they have expectation, no one's ever seen this. So if I can find somebody that no one's ever seen that can pull it off at a high level, then people are going to hear her. And so when she auditioned, I through my casting director, I found John Meese and went through his portfolio. And I sat down with him and talked to him. He has a daughter. I said, you know, I'm going to play this very, very tight. And I said, it's going to be uncomfortable because the father is going to be disconnected, and it's going to feel bad, and it's going to look bad. But I said, we're not going to be shy about what happens to somebody when they experience true horror, which is their wife dying and they're left to be responsible for somebody they have no idea who they are. And so that was finding that moment. So when I found John, and he has a very stoic, but he's incredibly good with kids. He is, if you go on his Facebook page and see what he does with his daughter, I mean, he is just a big, big heart. And so when those two got together, it was a really solid chemistry. And I allowed it. I was really managing, you know, I work in commercials, so, you know, you don't want to get down to the phonetics of a scene, or you've lost it. And it's really, because when you're as a director, it's like, I'm really glad I had some of that experience, because John did such a good job, and I hope he gets a lot of love, because he had nothing to act on. He had an absent participant. So he is going through his emotions and talking to himself and stuff with this kid right in front of him. And it just really played up. I have 4 daughters. And so it played up, and it did exactly what I wanted, is to show in a very demonstrative way with these 2 characters isolated what it feels like to, you know, lose your wife and be stuck with 4 kids, or be stuck with a nonverbal autistic child and not know them. You know, that's hell, especially when you've done the bad work.
Yeah.
You know,
when you have your characters together, do you just allow the relationship to form on screen or in rehearsals, or outside of all that, have them actually have a kind of camaraderie, or would that be detrimental to this kind of specific relationship?
well, I was really fortunate. I had to take a swing, and I had two things. It was like, do I hyper rehearse this so that we just get it down? Because honestly, with Faye, with the nonverbal autism, it's like all of her movements had to be different. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, all right, we're going to repeat this over and over and over again. No, she had to know her general place, but her tics and her stuff that she was doing it was in the scene. And so I really wanted to concentrate them in that scene so she could play those moments. So when I put them in, we had rehearsal. It was really interesting because it was pretty good. Me and Doug, my DP, who's a very, very solid collaborator with me, watched them play out the scene, and we did a little rehearsal, and I said, just throw the cameras on and let's see what happens. And once we did that, and this was before we started shooting, and we started to play with that, and it started to get more real, they really just got comfortable really fast. John's a serious pro, but they had to sit down and really talk about it because of Faye's fear. She's like, you know, she was very, 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 very concerned about making the relationship feel real. And that's the part where, you know, John, as a dad, sat down and said, listen, you know, this is, you know, and I'll tell you what really kicked it off for those two, and this is what I will say, is that their off-screen relationship, it was really important. I would go back and I would regroup because it's really hard. I don't know any young actress, and that's what's exceptional about this film. Imagine going back in to do that over and over and over again as a nonverbal autistic child. And I don't care how many years of experience you have, that is emotionally exhausting. And that kid really put it on the table for us. And you know what? You know, we were talking about it, getting that relationship down. She said her and John's friendship, the immediate connection, they went out, they had lunch together before that, they spent a couple of days. She said all of a sudden she could just be comfortable in front of him and know that it was okay. So I think that personal relationship outside of it really helped solidify the trust, because this is a trust film, you know?
Did any of your actors, or even you yourself, have any trouble shaking off this film once production wrapped, getting out of that headspace it was required to make such a picture?
You know, it was a little bit. There was you know, because we were moving so fast. I mean, we really did, for the amount of time we shot and what we shot, we did it in such a small I mean, we really did good. It doesn't look like that, I mean, with the time we had, because we really were concentrated. So at the end of it, when we were processing everything, I think everybody, this was the part of the film where everybody, we got done, and we went, okay, we did this. Like, what an exceptional journey. We made a movie, a horror movie that has heart and talks about cultural hot points. And we don't really know what do we do now? No one's going to really know what this is. And it's because it's new. It's because it's like, when we got done with it, we went, what are people going to say? What are people, how are they going to challenge this? Is that, everybody's talking about inclusivity. Oh, we've got to include different characters and we got to have different, and I'm like, I am all in. This is like manna from heaven to hear. And I'm like, and the reason why is because I love working with, anybody, and I put this in another interview, it's like people that deal with disorders or, are marginalized, they have to draw on that amazing part of the human spirit when all hope is lost. And they dig, and they make it work. And that is what a horror movie needs, is a hero that has to dig and be human, but you don't understand her. So when we got done with it, we all kind of looked at each other and went, oh my God, we just created something so different. I hope that people can really hear this thing, And when we got the edit done, we went, oh my God, I think we got a movie. It worked, And which was an amazing thing because I really don't swing. I have another short film I did, it's called In Case of Rapture. And it's about a guy that sells rapture insurance, So I push the envelope when it comes to like hitting some hot buttons and just go, I like to be able to go, if we're going to do a horror film, what would make it different? Well, I come from the world of character, and a horror film is different not because of what's happening, but because of the characters. And that's what draws me to a film is the characters. So we felt like we had a film, but we were like going, holy crap, this is really good, and I hope people hear us. So there you go.
Thank you, gentlemen. My last question, which is probably the most important question, is where and when will people be able to see The Noise in the Middle?
Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, so we do have a premiere that's happening this Thursday, the 29th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's going to be on the Kings of Horror YouTube channel. It's going to be a live event, so we'll actually have, people can be asking questions off to the side, instant message style.
Yep.
So we're really excited about that. Now, the Kings of Horror is it's a website that is people pay for. It's a paid website, so they have a membership. But for this premiere, it's free to the public. Afterwards, for 6 weeks exclusively, it's on the Kings of Horror membership website. After that, our distributor at Terror Films is going to be finding different homes for our film on
transactional, yeah.
Yeah, transactional, content-based websites like
Comcast, Xfinity, Apple.
Yeah, yep. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. So we're really excited about the future of this film.
Yeah,
awesome.
And for our company because of it.
Do you have any plans for a physical media release at all?
With this, yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
Definitely. It just depends. It really depends on where our distributor finds a good home for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And some of the cool things, just to add in here, we're trying something different. We've got a good film, and it's beautiful. It's high quality. It's a solid piece of work. And our thing is we really wanted to, especially with COVID, with theaters being shut down and everybody, looking for a really good, solid film. We really talked about this, and it's like, you go out and you sell or lease a film really fast out of the gate, and we are like we're in this weird world where people aren't going to theaters, and we really want people to see this now. And let's see if they'll join us, and we'll put it out on Kings of Horror for 6 weeks, really show people how amazing this film is, and then go out and say, buy a ticket. I'm telling you what, it doesn't need to be in this big jumbled mess in Netflix. We might be able to touch an audience, and I really hope it stays in that realm. And obviously, we'll end up on the other streamers at some point. But we've got to take a swing at this with people at home and with a really good film and message. We hope that they join us and come and check out our film on Kings of Horror. But we're only doing that to get us right out of the gate. And then on December 11th, we're going to go, we'll be on all the platforms for transactional for a while. So I really want people to know that we're trying something different too. And we think that we've got a good enough product to do it.
You've been listening to the Sixth Sense Media Podcast. You can find more of our celebrity interviews and roundtable discussions on iTunes, Podbean, and SoundCloud. Be sure to check out our movie, TV, and video game coverage at sixthsense.com and fanbolt.com.